Hi guys, welcome to your first drawing tutorial here. Now this is gonna just kind of be a little bit of a crash course here in drawing figures. What I see oftentimes in young artists is I see a big mistake. I see that they jump right into drawings and they go right for the details first. Like, how many of you guys have ever made a drawing and halfway through you realize that an arm is too long or the head's too small or something's in the wrong place? That's because you guys like to jump into the details. And why not? The details are fun. The details are what make a picture look like a picture. But I want to show you some things that will help eliminate those problems, things that will help you understand proportion a little bit more. I want to talk about building a framework. So the biggest problem I see with young artists is they work from the details first, and we never want to do that. We always want to work from very general to specific, meaning we start sort of with a rough draft, and then as we progress with the drawing, we tighten things up and we get it to look a little bit better and a little bit better until all of a sudden we have a final drawing. So for drawing people, we're going to do this by drawing what's called a framework. So if you can draw a stick figure, I promise you can draw a framework. So first of all, let's get our basic stick figure here. We have, we have a head, we have a body, we got some legs here, and then we got these like little noodle arm things. So that's our basic stick figure. We're gonna take that figure and we're gonna modify it so that you can draw a real figure. So here's how this is gonna work. We're gonna start the same way. We're gonna start with the head. So whenever you're drawing, it's always good to start with the head. That's important. The reason for that is that's usually the focal point of the picture. If we start drawing a figure and we start with the feet and then we make the person too big and then the person goes off the page, well, we don't want to look at a picture of like a person's feet and legs and body and not see their head. It's always better to start with their head. It's better if we do a drawing and then if we make it too big, since we started with the head, maybe then we just cut off the feet or something that's, not as important as the head. Not that your feet aren't important, but you know what I mean. So we always want to start with the head when we're doing a drawing. Next, we're going to do the same thing as if we were doing a stick figure here. We're going to start with, or we're going to add that little line. So same deal. We have the exact same thing happening. We have the head and then we have that line that shows the body. But this is important. That's your core. We can tell a whole lot about what's going on with someone just from that line. We can tell if that person is laying down. So if they're laying down, maybe it's something like that. Or if they're standing, or, maybe if they're like hunched over, it's something like this. So just from that one little line, we can determine a whole lot about what's going on. So we have our head, we have our spine there. We're gonna start to differ here because unlike our stick figure, nobody has arms that come directly out of their torso like that. We all have shoulders. And we wanna make sure that we get those shoulders in. So for our shoulders, we're just gonna draw a little line like this. Now what's important is that you leave a little bit of space between the shoulders and the head because that neck right there is important. We need that. Again, we're gonna start to differ here. So unlike our stick figure, we don't have these noodle arms. We have arms that bend in very particular places. We have like joints. So like my wrist here. We have shoulders and elbows, but we have arms that bend in particular places and we wanna show that. So what you guys are gonna do is you're just gonna put little circles there to show where these things bend. So we have this shoulder joint, we have an arm, we're gonna have an elbow, and then the rest of the arm. And then same thing over here. Do that, then we have that little circle, and then we can have his arm bent like that. We don't really need the circles for the hands because we can just kind of put the hand at any angle we want. And all you guys are really gonna do for this is you're just gonna kind of make some real flat little oval things like that. And that's gonna represent our hands for right now. Same thing with our legs. We don't have legs that come directly out of our spine. We have hips. So we're gonna represent those hips. We're gonna make just kind of like a real flat little oval there. And then we're gonna have legs that come out like this, have our knee, and we'll just draw some ovals for feet. So there's our framework for the human body. It's pretty simple. It's a little bit more complex than our stick figure, but not much. I want to show you a couple more things here. So on a new piece of paper, I want to show you something called foreshortening. So what foreshortening is if we have someone and they're standing here like this, and they have their arms straight out to the side like this, you see the full length of their arms, right? But what happens if you're drawing someone and they have their arm turned towards you? So if my pen is sticking straight out like that, that's the full length of it. But if I turn it towards you, that pen becomes foreshortened. You see a shortened version of that pen, right? So full length, it's almost like the width of the paper, but if I turn it, it gets real short. That's called foreshortening. So when we draw that in a figure, we kind of do the same thing as that pen. So if I have my person here and I have their arms sticking all the way out, full length, but if I want to foreshorten that arm, like it's reaching out to you in space, I draw this shorter version, and maybe his hand's sticking up like this, he's telling you to stop. So it becomes something like this. We can do the same thing with his legs. If his legs are fully extended, great. But what happens if he's sitting? Well, then maybe the top of this thigh here becomes foreshortened, and then this leg is maybe hanging down. Okay, so that's foreshortening. All you're doing is you're just drawing it a little bit shorter than how you would draw it regularly. And this is something that you're gonna see a whole lot in drawing. We'll come across that quite often when we're doing figures, so it's very common. I wanna just show you a real quick framework of the face too here, and then we'll put this all together and I'll show you what I want from you guys. But if you are drawing a face, and there's 100 different ways to do this, I'm gonna just show you one quick, easy way. So if you're drawing a face or a head, we always wanna just start with like kind of a rough oval-y circle there. We all have different shaped heads and faces and things, but everyone's head is taller than it is wide. It's because you have like, you know, your brain, your jaw, it's just the anatomy of the human head. So we do always have taller heads than we do have wider heads. Now, if you get into some cartoons, that might not always be the case, but for basic figure drawing, we wanna start with something that's a little oval. Now we can set up the head with just two very easy lines. We can do a center line here, and we can do a center line this way. And what this does is this represents where everything's gonna sit. So here's my head, and then I might have something like this. So this is my person. Maybe their hair's down, or maybe their hair's up, whatever. But that's just a very simple setup of the face. But this gets very helpful when we're figure drawing, because we can alter this if we do something that's called a 3/4 view. And 3/4 view is something that you probably will see in, I would say, between, I don't know, 75 and 95% of the cartoons out there, they use what's called a 3/4 view. So we have the head, but they're not looking straight at you, and they're not looking straight to the side, which is a profile, but they're looking at you like sort of at an angle. So when we're drawing that, because this isn't a circle, it's a sphere, we have to curve this center line so we get something that looks like this. So then there would be an eye here, and then maybe their nose is somewhere over here, and then they're like this. Hey. And we can use these simple lines to do a bunch of things. We can use these lines to have someone look up. So if they're looking up, that center line stays the same, but then this line curves. And then we get something that looks like this. So here are your eyes, maybe your nose then is like this, and then they're looking up. Hey, what's that up there? Or you can have them looking down. So here's the head. Here's our center line, and now their eyes are way down here and they're looking down. Or if you want to get real fancy, you can change both things and you can have it be like something crazy like this, where they're looking up and to the side. Whoa, it's crazy. Okay, so with those two easy lines, you can set up a framework for the face. So I showed you a framework for the body, a framework for the face. Let's put it all together real quick. And this is what you guys are gonna do for homework. So what I want you to do is I want you just to go online. You can just do a Google search and find some pictures of like some comic books, some cartoons, something where you see figures. It can even be real people at this point. For next week's assignment, we'll look more at like comic book characters and cartoons. But I want to just have you find 5 different characters where you can do a framework of their pose. So I'm going to use this this future Spidey here. This is Spider-Man 2099. He's all future-y looking. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to do just a real quick framework of this. So when I'm drawing this guy, set him there. Oh, my cat came to say hello. And I'm going to put this here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just look at this. Maybe I can get these both in here. How about that? I'll slide this over. Whoa, you're wobbly. So I'll put this here, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a quick framework. Now this framework shouldn't take you long. It should take you all of like, you know, a minute. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a little, and it doesn't have to be huge, but I'm gonna start off with his head, and then his shoulders, because he's kind of hunched over, are sort of here and here. And then his arms bent back, and then it comes down, and I have like a hand here, and then this one's over here, and this is like this, and I got a hand here, and then his body comes down here. I have his hips there. I have a leg, has a little bit of foreshortening happening here, and then it bends back down, and then I get a foot. And then I have another leg here that comes up to where like that hand almost is over here. And then it comes down and then it sticks out. So this is how pretty much every professional artist, illustrator, animator, this is how they draw, is they do what's called like a framework first. Because what this does is it allows you to make sure that all your proportions are correct. So like I said earlier, sometimes we do drawings where like the arm's too big or the arm's too small, or something's in the wrong place. Well, if you do a framework first, before you do a finished drawing, then before you get into all the details, you can make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. And then I can also kind of throw my facial stuff in here, even though he doesn't really have facial features. He does have like, you know, kind of spots where his eyes should be. But what I can do now is I can step back and I can look at this, and before I get into drawing the details, I can make sure, okay, well, is his arm where it needs to be? Is his hand in the right place? And I can erase things and I can change things if a leg's too high or if something's too low. So I can fix all that, and before I go into really drawing, I can make sure everything's exactly where it needs to be so that I don't get half of my drawing done and then realize I messed up. So all you guys are going to do for this week is you're going to just do 5 of these drawings. Now you can fit them all on the same piece of paper. They can be smaller. They don't have to be this big. And I'll get more into this when I get into the assignments. But this is all I'm looking for, is just this really fancy stick figure. That's a head, torso there, shoulders, and these little circles for all of your joints that show right where everything is supposed to bend. So just like that. All right? So make sure you find some interesting poses, and you'll do 5 different ones. And again, I will get into that in the assignments, so you can click into the assignments and see exactly what I'm looking for. But that's how you do a framework. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful, and we will expand upon this idea next week, and I'll show you how to turn this framework into a finished drawing. All right, thanks guys.